Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I'll be doing a YouTube deck tech from the comment section for you guys. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you or help you tweak a list you're trying to work on, I'm looking for any of the 5 metrics in the comment section. A bracket, a budget, a theme, a commander, and any pack cards you might have. I'll also leave a link to my Discord down below. It's a great place to drop a deck list off to have me work on. Today we have a request from the user Sean G looking for a highly optimized Sephiroth build around $800 to $1,000. So this is Sephiroth Fabled Soldier. It's an Aristocrats deck through and through. 2 colorless and a black. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you can sack a creature. If you do, draw a card. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. If this is the 4th time this ability has resolved this turn, flip Sephiroth into an absolute one-wing angel death machine. So I'll get to the points as we go through, but there's a few major points of contention, in my opinion, when it comes to Aristocrats decks. Liliana does everything you want. It can draw cards, it can make tokens, and it can sack creatures. Tevish Zot can draw cards, it can make tokens, and it can sacrifice creatures. Those are basically like the 3 pillars of things you want to be doing in a deck like this. A Curse Marauder. So when it comes to a Aristocrats deck, you are attacking from 2 fronts. From the front of cards like a Curse Marauder, which say when it comes into play, everybody has to sack a creature. Against a deck that's playing tokens, probably not going to do a whole lot. But against a deck that only has a couple of creatures and is really built around its commander, this is going to be absolutely backbreaking. On the other perspective, you're also approaching from the side of things like Ayara, where when a creature dies, everyone's losing a life and you're gaining a life. So you're winning the game on the axis of controlling the board via sacrifice outlets, and then also attacking people's life total with things like Ayara. So we're playing all the Accursed Marauder effects. You have this, you have, what else is here? Demon's Disciple, Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, Plague Crafter. These are all great ways to force a sacrifice for everyone at the table. And then we're playing a bunch of ways to get paid. Ayara, having people lose and gain life, drain and gain, as they say, whenever a creature dies. So Ayara, Blood Artist. You're also looking at Marionette Apprentice. Pawn of Ulamog is a different kind of a payoff where you get a creature that can also make mana. Pitiless Plunder is a payoff that makes mana. And then you also have Yawgmoth for card draw. Warren Soul Trader does a little bit of everything for you, and Viscera Seer as another sacrifice outlet. So, to get to the points of contention I mentioned, when you're building an Aristocrats deck, there's a few things you have to keep in mind. One, how many creatures are you playing that you're actually happy to sacrifice? One big mistake I see with a lot of Aristocrats decks I look at is they all have these amazing things like Braids, Blood Artist, uh, and then sack outlets like Carrion Feeder. And, as long as you have creatures on the battlefield that you're happy to actually get rid of, these cards are great. If you don't have creatures on the battlefield you're happy to get rid of, and you just have a bunch of cards like Carrion Feeder and Blood Artist and Braids on the battlefield or in your deck, all of a sudden you're not really happy to sacrifice creatures anymore, and the entire identity of your deck kind of goes away. Because now every time you're playing something that says sacrifice a creature, you're not actually happy to do it. We want to build in such a way that we have a good balance of, one, creatures that we're happy to sacrifice, two, ways to actually sacrifice those creatures, and three, ways to get paid when we do sacrifice those creatures. Balancing those 3 things is the most important thing to do when you're building an Aristocrats deck. So I took a lot of care in constructing this and making sure that we had a good balance in all of those. So if we went by column, when you're looking at things you're happy to sacrifice, you're looking at Bitterbloom Bearer, Bloodghast, obviously all of these sacrifice guys that also make other people do it. Forsaken Miner, Gravecrawler, Jadar tokens, Nether Trader, 9 Lives Familiar. If you haven't played with this yet from Foundations, it is absolutely insane in an Aristocrats deck. Ophiomancer, Pawn of Ulamog, all of these things, reassembling skeletons, do a really good job of being happy to sit on the battlefield and be sacrificed to the greater cause. So make sure you have a good amount of those creatures in here. On the surface, it doesn't look awesome to play reassembling skeletons, but when you've sacrificed him to one of your abilities that draws cards or drains and gains 4 or 5 times over the course of a game, you start to realize the importance of it. Then you have things that pay you for sacrificing. So looking at Ayara for draining and gaining, Braids for card draw, and then you also have Marionette Apprentice, Pitiless Plunder pays you off, Pawn of Ulamog also pays you off, Yawgmoth, Warren Soul Trader. So a good amount of creatures that are happy to be sacrificing something. And then as far as the actual ability to sacrifice the creature in the first place, Ayara, Carrion Feeder, all of these guys that enter and make everybody sacrifice. What else do we have here? Viserysir, Warren Soul Trader, so Yawgmoth. So quite a few abilities that do all of these things, and all of this works in unison to create a fairly unstoppable engine, in my opinion. I've played a lot of Aristocrats decks, and I normally don't keep them around very long because they end up being a little bit too strong for the amount of fun that I want to have. Normally, the drain and gain doesn't bother people too much, but the Accursed Marauder effects, the everyone sacrifices a creature effect, is, like I said before, quite a backbreaker when it comes to any non-token deck. Sorceries, you're not playing many. Agadeem's Awakening, hopefully you can keep it till the late game, get a bunch back, plus it's also an MDFC. Victimize, you're not super worried about losing a creature. Nothing is extremely pivotal to your game plan. You're always going to have an abundance of creatures that are all doing kind of the same thing, as long as it's filling one of those 3 slots of the payoff, the sacrifice, or the thing to be sacrificed. You're happy to lose it and then just play a different version of it. But if you're in the middle game and you have a reassembling skeletons on the board with, you know, a Yawgmoth and a Jadar in your graveyard, you're really happy to have Victimize and get those 2 back. Instance, Dark Ritual, turn 1, commander or a 3-mana spell is great here. This is a min-max deck. We are $800 to $1,000 budget, so we're going to play the good black cards like Deadly Rollick. In Tomb, I highly recommend you get something that you can buy back or generates tokens. So the new Bitter Blossom on a creature, the reassembling skeletons, the grave crawlers, those are the things I'd recommend. Making sure you have that creature you're always happy to get rid of. Flare of Malice, Shieldred's Edict, Snuff Out, Soul Shatter, and Sazat's Will are all great ways to keep the board in check. Malakir Rebirth and Not Dead After All. Another mistake I see with Aristocrats decks is they play a ton of these type effects. Remember that a lot of the really good creatures that you're happy to sacrifice are already good at coming back on their own, so you don't need a ton of these type effects. And yeah, there are some creatures you want to save. You would want to keep your Yawgmoth around. You would want to keep your Sephiroth around. It's not necessary for you to continue your game plan and continue your engine. But in the same vein, sometimes it's okay to run a couple. So here I run an MDFC and a Not Dead After All, and I think that's a good stopping point for that type of game plan. Artifacts, we're playing hardly any ramp. We're operating at like 3 to 4 mana. We really don't need it. But you have the Dark Ritual, the Arcane Signet. The Jet Medallion is really good in a deck like this because it normally lets you double spell. And instead of producing 1 mana a turn, it'll produce 2 because it's reducing the cost of 2 things by 1. You see what I did there? Soul Rain, Thought Vessel, Soul Stone. Soul Stone is pretty obvious. If you can get the Infinity going, it's going to probably just win the game for you on its own. Thought Vessel in case you do get too big of a hand size. Besides that, that's it. We get to another point of contention, the amount of ways to sacrifice creatures. You could add an Altar of Dementia, and you could add a Ashnod's Altar and things like that, but I think we already have a healthy amount of ways to sacrifice creatures in the deck. Phyrexian Altar is the only one I really wanted because 1, it has black pips, which is really good for this deck, and 2, it is a win condition. If you have Phyrexian Altar and then, you know, maybe like a Grave Crawler, a Gray Merchant and a Marionette Apprentice out, or even just something like Sephiroth. We can make it even easier. You have Sephiroth, Phyrexian Altar, Gravecrawler, and Gray Merchant out. As long as you have an extra zombie around, Gravecrawler can be recast from your graveyard. So you can use your Phyrexian Altar to sacrifice Gravecrawler to produce a black mana, triggering Sephiroth to have everyone lose and then you gain. And then you use that black mana to recast Gravecrawler from the graveyard. So the only thing that's happened after that series of events is you've triggered Sephiroth one time and you've sacrificed one creature on the battlefield. So you are creating a loop where you can continually sack Gravecrawler. If you have Sephiroth, it wins the game. Ayara will win the game. Blood Artist will win the game. Any of these things that pay you off, drain and gain when you sacrifice, will win the game with that Phyrexian Altar and Gravecrawler combo. Skull Clamp, probably the best card draw in any Aristocrat or token deck. The Masamune, to be honest with you, I'm not convinced that this card is that good. In fact, I don't think it really makes the cut in my opinion. But I put it in here because Sephiroth's in the art. It is his sword. It is cool. So we can have a little bit of fun sprinkled in here. Enchantments. So you might be saying, Blackjack, where's all the creatures that say whenever a creature dies, draw a card? Where's the Morbid Opportunist? Where's the I don't know the rest of the creatures that have those, but I think there's one more. There's one or two. There's a couple actually. Anyways, where's all the Morbid Opportunists? So we're already playing 28 creatures. We're going to be committing a lot of stuff to the board. The moment that we add all the creatures that pay us off for creatures dying, we're going to be at like 35 creatures, and after one board wipe, the game is going to be over for us. So it's important that we also have some payoffs in sections like artifacts and enchantments, so that way we don't just completely fold to a board wipe. And I'm talking about things like Chthonian Nightmare, Dark Prophecy, Phyrexian Arena, Grave Pact. These are all cards that you could get these effects on creatures, but it's really important to have them somewhere else in your permanents, so that way you don't lose the game after one day of judgment. But Bastion of Remembrance to drain and gain. We also have Meat Hook Massacre to do the same thing, plus be a board wipe. Dictate of Erebos and Grave Pact will really piss your friends off quickly and keep the board clear for you at the same time. They win the game on their own. Bitter Blossom, Dreadhorde Invasion, Blight Mound, Chthonian Nightmare, all ways for you to produce tokens or get creatures back. Chthonian Nightmare is absolutely broken in this deck. Probably secretly the best card in this deck, I would say, right behind 9 Lives Familiar. Contamination, another great way to lose your friends. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Contamination unless you sacrifice a creature, so it's a sack outlet. If a land's tapped for mana, it produces black instead of any other type. So if someone's playing a 3-color deck that doesn't have black in it, well, that's too bad. Now all of a sudden, all of your breeding pools and your forests tap for black. You probably can't play the game anymore. So again, I wouldn't play this at a casual table, but we are talking bracket 3-ish. We are talking a massive budget. We do want to win the game. This is the type of card that's going to get the job done. Dark Prophecy for card draw. Lands. So lands are actually where quite a bit of the budget comes from. Things like Barad-dur, not amazing in most decks, but a way to always produce a creature for you to sacrifice is good. We do have Cabal Coffer's Urborg combo to produce a ton of mana, plus Urza of Cave to find one of those. Cabal Stronghold can produce a lot of mana. Castle Lockflame for card draw. Cavern of Souls is a free roll in here. You could just name Human and get your Sephiroth down all the time guaranteed. Crypt of Agadim for more mana. High Market as a sack outlet. Myriad Landscape I usually play in any non-green deck, at least if it's 2 or less colors. Excuse me. Nykthos obviously can produce a lot of mana. Phyrexian Tower is a sack outlet. Realm of Ko to make tokens. Takenuma to buy stuff back. Urborg we talked about. Volrus Stronghold to buy stuff back. Very expensive, but it's incredible for what it does. War Room is great card draw in any 1-color deck. Westvale Abbey, who doesn't want to make Ormdal Profane Prince, right? Plus it makes tokens. Witch's Cottage to get something back from the graveyard. And the last thing I promised was the considering. So when you are looking at game changers, if you do want to take this to that guaranteed bracket 3 scumbag level of power, Orcish Bowmasters is a incredible way to generate multiple creatures over time. More often than not, most decks will find a way to draw more than one card a turn. So sacrificing that Orc army and then making a new one is crazy. Tegreg is uh, insane. It will win the game on its own. It will piss your friends off. I played it exactly one game in my Aristocrats deck, and it just literally warped the game and won the game by itself within like 2 turns. This card's absolutely insane. There's a reason not many people play it. It's just kind of a respect thing. But if you want to win, there you are. Finally, Bolus's Citadel. Who doesn't want infinity card draw, especially where all of your cards usually cost like 3 mana or less? Overall, incredibly powerful. Any Aristocrats engine, if built right, is usually extremely strong and extremely hard to stop and extremely consistent. So when you build this, let me know how it plays out. Let me know how many friends you end up losing. Thank you so much for watching. As always, Godspeed.